And I'm joined now for an exclusive interview with former US Ambassador to Poland, Daniel Fried. Good evening to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Good evening.
Volodymyr Zelensky says Germany may be effectively replacing the United States as Kyiv's largest partner. He's saying Berlin is doing more than anyone else right now. What does this tell us about the state of ties between Kyiv and Washington?
Vice President Vance recently said that he was proud that the U.S. had cut aid to Ukraine. And that is another round of U.S. official rhetoric that suggests Ukraine's struggle for survival, its successful defense against Russian aggression, has nothing to do with the U.S. That is a profound mistake in my view. And it is unfortunate that the U.S., the leader of the free world, is taking the back seat in a struggle in which free world interests are at risk and in which success is quite possible, judging by Ukraine's success on the battlefield and Russian casualties.
To be clear, is it possible that Kyiv's greatest fears could come true, that Russia is benefiting from booming oil prices and Donald Trump is forgetting about ending the war in Ukraine with any urgency?
It is true that Russia is benefiting from higher oil prices, but the Russian economy is still in weak shape, and I'm happy to let you know that the U.S. administration did not renew the ill-considered license that lifted sanctions against Russian oil. So the sanctions are back on. That's good news for Washington. The fact is, Ukraine's success is entirely possible. And the US and the free world and Europe, Poland as well, would benefit from this. So the US should be investing in Ukraine's success. That would be in our national interest, and it is a shame that we are not.
So beyond what the US should do you think Donald Trump is forgetting about ending the war in Ukraine with any urgency, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, the U.S. continues to do a fair amount for Ukraine. There's intelligence sharing, and U.S. weapons are still going to Ukraine, paid for by the Europeans. So the U.S. has not backed out of support for Ukraine at all. I think that Donald Trump goes back and forth on Ukraine. I think that part of his political base is mad at Ukraine for reasons that are both ill-founded and have nothing to do with American security, more like the first impeachment during Trump's first term. I think U.S. goes back, as I said, goes back and forth, which is quite a shame because success is achievable. The Ukrainians are doing better in the battlefield. The Russian economy is weak. If the U.S. were not suggesting to Vladimir Putin that he could fight on, if our rhetoric were more supportive and more consistent in support of Ukraine, we would be considerably closer to a successful ceasefire, I believe.
Beyond Ukraine, we've seen this week President Trump hit out at the Pope. He's compared himself to Jesus. He's attacked his own political ally in Giorgia Meloni. He's watched the fall of a pro-MAGA European leader in Viktor Orban. Is the US president fast losing friends and, well, the ability to influence people?
Well, it's been a bad week for the White House. The investment in Viktor Orban didn't make any sense because under Orban, Hungary was not doing the things that Trump wants European countries to do. Trump wants European countries to spend more on defense and help Ukraine. Orban does none of those things. I don't understand the purpose of picking a fight with the Pope. And the bizarre AI-generated drawing of President Trump as a god, as Christ, was deeply offensive to many people who aren't Catholic, or to non-Christians. It was just offensive. And the fight with Meloni, I think Prime Minister Meloni is reading public opinion in Italy and is distancing herself from Trump. The fact is, the American government should be building alliances and working to add to our alliances, working with our friends, and reaching out to those who are skeptical. That's pretty basic statecraft, but the Trump administration seems intent on punching just about in all directions at this point. Let's not forget the renewed Trump rhetoric about Greenland. There is no U.S. interest whatsoever that requires annexation of Greenland. None. Zero. All of our security interests in the Arctic can be better achieved by working with Greenland and with Denmark rather than threatening them. But Trump keeps going back to this. It's been a bad couple of weeks. But nevertheless, there are forces in the administration and in Trump world, Republicans in Congress and many other people, who have what I will call a more free world, more Reagan-esque view of American policy. They can work with the Democrats, who are also have rediscovered their inner Harry Truman, their support for the free world. So Poland has partners in the U.S. with whom to work, even under these difficult circumstances.
I want to ask you about Donald Trump's war in the Middle East, particularly these blockades of Iranian ports. More than 80% of Tehran's shipped oil goes to Beijing. How painful is America's blockade of Iranian ports for China? And are you worried about what China could do next? Particularly given, obviously, that Donald Trump has somewhat of a rivalry, if not an arch nemesis, in Xi Jinping.
The Chinese are unhappy with the blockade, but I will say this for Trump. I don't think he is interested in renewing the war. I believe he is interested in some sort of negotiated solution with Iran, and he is looking for leverage. Now, Trump is betting that the blockade will hurt the Iranian economy and force them to offer better terms. The Iranians are hoping that the higher oil prices and Chinese objections and other objections will weaken Trump's position. Both sides are maneuvering for diplomatic advantage as talks may resume. I don't think either side wants a resumption of the war. What I don't know is how badly the Iranians have been hurt and what their calculation is. In their place, trying to look for American weakness makes sense, and Trump is determined to resist. Where this ends up could be a negotiated solution, and it has seemed to me for some time that Trump may be forced, ironically enough, to some version of the old Iranian nuclear deal, the JCPOA, negotiated by the Obama administration, that Republicans and Trump have hated ever since. But I think that some negotiated solution, hopefully a little better than the JCPOA, may be what we have.
Mr. Ambassador, we're running out of time, but very briefly, is there an argument here that Donald Trump is hitting two birds with one stone? He claims China is, quote, very happy with the efforts to open the Strait of Hormuz. Naturally, China is not and has said so, but he really seems to be squeezing both Iran and China at the same time, so perhaps achieving two of his goals at once.
Well, the Chinese are not apt to take this lightly, and they have plenty of economic leverage over the U.S. The U.S. should not take on too many enemies at once. And besides, if I had to invest more American political capital, I would be backing Ukraine, because there the odds of a strategic success for Ukraine and the free world are higher than they are with respect to Iran.
Former US Ambassador to Poland, Daniel Fried, always a pleasure. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And that's all for World News tonight. Do stay with us here on TVP World for more news and analysis. I'm Aaron Darman. Good night.